Now we start with China and U.S. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has announced that China and the United States has reached a framework consensus on trade issues. This agreement has been made through economic and trade talks that were held in Malaysia's Kuala Lumpur last weekend. According to Chinese state media, Wang Yi has told U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio that both countries agreed on reciprocal solutions to tackle current pressing economic challenges. Additionally, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Goh Jiakun has earlier stated that at a press briefing today that the discussions between U.S.-China negotiations were in-depth and constructive. Let's listen into some of his other remarks at the issue.
关于中美经贸磋商，中方已经发布了消息。此次经贸磋商中，双方以两国元首重要共识为引领，围绕共同关心的重要经贸问题。 进行了坦诚、深入、富有建设性的交流磋商，就解决各自关切的安排达成基本共识。双方同意进一步确定具体细节，并履行各自国内批准程序。具体的问题建议向中方的主管部门进行询问。
Moreover, China's international trade representative has mentioned that U.S.-China talks in Kuala Lumpur covered key issues such as export controls, tariffs, and law enforcement cooperation. These discussions aim to prepare for the highly anticipated meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday in South Korea. The latest developments in U.S.-China trade talks have sparked optimism in the markets. Wall Street has reportedly opened at record high today, as investors now hope the U.S.-China truce could lead to stability in U.S.-China trade relations. Now for this discussion, we welcome David K. Johnston. He's an American author, joins us live from New York. Thank you very much, David, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, how does the U.S.-China framework consensus reflect Trump's America First trade strategy and its effectiveness?
Well, the Chinese actually have a stronger hand to play here than the United States does. Donald has said he's imposing tariffs, which he has no constitutional authority to do, but he is forcing the collection of them at the border, and people paying them are filing under protest with a request for a refund. But the U.S. needs things China has very badly, more than China needs things the U.S. has. In particular, things like neodymium and other rare earths that are necessary for modern electronics, whether they're consumer electronics or military weaponry. And so we haven't seen any details of this outline of an agreement, but it's very common with Donald that he talks about, well, I have a concept of how to do something or an outline of something. Eventually, we should see an actual document to see who gave up what or is expected to give up what to resolve these differences.
And in what ways might Trump perceive China's call for, as today earlier we saw them calling for a multipolar world as a challenge to his administration's global economic influence?
Well, Donald believes that he should run the whole world. He's literally said that. And so he expects other people to dance to his tune and do what he tells them to do. And President Xi, who is a highly educated, highly disciplined national leader who has been leading China now for a decade, he's going to be much smarter about how to negotiate this. He has people with real negotiating skills and does himself, unlike Donald, who brags about his deal-making capacity, but which, as I've shown in my books and columns over the years, it's just a fiction. It's one of the many things he just makes up his own reality.
What do you think, how would this upcoming summit go? You know, while there's a huge lack of experience and also, as you said, education in between these upcoming summits from the people who are attending it from U.S. side and Chinese side?
Well, both countries have an interest in bringing about an end to this. And in Trump's case, he needs very much to show that he's gotten some benefit. In America right now, sales of soybeans by our farmers in the Midwest have gone from $13 billion last year to zero today, and unless something changes, zero in all future years, because China is now able to get all the soybeans it wants from Argentina, Australia, and Brazil, and other countries. So both sides will have an interest in being able to say, we got something to save face and smooth things over, but we just don't have enough information to know what, if anything, will actually grow out of this meeting.
And how could Trump leverage the reciprocal trade solution in his domestic political messaging ahead of elections?
Well, Trump is, of course, always promoting his mercantilist 17th century economics, where a dollar that India has or China has or Japan has is a dollar the U.S. doesn't have, and we need to take it, rather than understanding that we've become very good as a species at creating wealth. Not so good at distributing it, but at creating it. And so his own misunderstanding of world trade, of manufacturing, supply chains, all those related things, make it difficult for Donald to come to some kind of a resolution of this. He does have people around him who know what they're doing if he'll allow them to do their work. And his message back home will be, even if he comes away in a clear deficit position relative to President Xi, he will, of course, claim that this was the greatest negotiation ever and there's never been such a great trade deal in the history of the world.
Right. And lastly, David, what risks and opportunities does Trump face in balancing constructive trade talks with his tough stance on tariffs and its economic coercion?
Well, the Chinese are in as I said, a strong position. And the Chinese have a very big interest in dominating that quarter of the world where more than half the world population lives. So they have been pressing ahead with deals. They've gotten Australia, which had always been Washington's most loyal lapdog, at least since 1940, to pivot a little bit toward Beijing. And so the Chinese are in a position to make deals going around the United States, and they're busy doing that right now. That was part of the reason for the meeting in Shanghai with President Modi, Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, where they went out of their way to humiliate Donald Trump with some of the photos opportunities that they set up. So the Chinese also are very patient. Unlike American politics, which is based on 2-year election cycles and 90-day corporate earnings reports, the Chinese operate on the theory that we're here for forever and eventually we will get what we want if we play our hand well and stick to our principles.
Right. Thank you very much, David K. Johnston, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we stay on this region. Now, Virginia is emerging